the Council's last hope. The emergency chambers of the Galactic Coalition hummed with a desperation that transcended species barriers. Councillor Merrix of the Caltherian people stood before the assembled representatives, his silver skin dulled by exhaustion and fear. Around the circular chamber, holographic displays showed the same horrifying story from a dozen different angles, entire star systems going dark, worlds reduced to lifeless husks, fleets of warships simply vanishing from sensor readings. The Void Swarm had been advancing through Coalition space for 8 standard months, and nothing had stopped them. These weren't invaders seeking territory or resources. They were something far worse. A collective intelligence that consumed everything in its path, breaking down matter itself to fuel its endless expansion. Planets, stations, ships, and people all became nothing more than raw material for the swarm's growth. Merrix's 3-fingered hands trembled as he manipulated the holographic controls. The latest casualty report materialized in the air above them. The 7th Fleet engaged the swarm at the Pelion Nebula 6 hours ago, he announced, his voice carrying the weight of too many such announcements. They fought for 37 minutes before losing communications. Long-range scans show no survivors. A collective murmur of dismay rippled through the chamber. The 7th Fleet had been their strongest remaining military force, comprised of vessels from 9 different species. Over 200 warships, each representing the pinnacle of their respective civilizations' military technology. Gone in less than an hour. Representative Quarren of the Methane Collective rose from her suspension pod, her gaseous form swirling with agitation. "This cannot continue," she said, her words translated by the chamber's universal systems. "We have thrown everything at this enemy. Kinetic weapons, energy beams, quantum disruptors, temporal mines. Nothing even slows them down. The swarm adapts to every attack within minutes." "We are not warriors," added Elder Thelios of the Verdant Gardens, his plant-based physiology displaying the brown edges of stress-induced wilting. "Our species have lived in peace for millennia. We build, we create, we discover. We are not prepared for total war against an enemy that exists only to destroy." Merrix knew they were right. The Galactic Coalition had been formed 3,000 years ago as a cultural and scientific alliance. Wars between member species had become ancient history, relegated to educational programs and museum displays. Their combined fleets existed primarily for exploration and disaster relief. Even their weapons had been designed with restraint in mind, following strict protocols that prevented unnecessary destruction. The Void Swarm followed no such protocols. It consumed indiscriminately, and it was learning from every encounter. The swarm's latest generation of attack drones could predict coalition tactics before they were even deployed. Their larger constructs shrugged off weapons that should have torn them apart. And behind it all, somewhere within that writhing mass of biomechanical horror, was an intelligence that seemed to take pleasure in the coalition's suffering. "We have one remaining option," Merrix said quietly, and the chamber fell silent. Every representative knew what he was about to suggest. It was the option they had been avoiding since the crisis began. "We must contact the humans." The reaction was immediate and divided. Some representatives nodded reluctantly. Others recoiled as if he had suggested something obscene. Humans were the galaxy's great unknown quantity, a species that had emerged onto the interstellar stage only 300 years ago and had largely kept to themselves ever since. "The humans are barbarians," Representative Quilks of the Silicon Collective stated flatly. "They still resolve disputes through violence. Their entertainment media glorifies warfare. They have nuclear weapons on their own homeworld, for the sake of the cosmos. They are also survivors," countered Councillor Verath of the Twin Suns dynasty. Her crystalline form reflected the chamber's lights in sharp angles. "I have studied their history. In their brief time as a spacefaring species, they have faced 4 extinction-level threats. They survived all of them, not through superior technology or ancient wisdom, but through sheer stubborn determination and tactical innovation." Merrix pulled up a new display, this one showing a star chart of human-controlled space. It was a modest territory, perhaps 30 systems, clustered in what the Coalition considered the galactic frontier. The humans had been offered membership in the Coalition decades ago and had politely declined. They maintained diplomatic relations and honored trade agreements, but they kept their military capabilities and strategic doctrines carefully hidden. 3 years ago, Merrix continued, a pirate coalition attacked the human colony on Archer's world. They had superior numbers and firepower. The humans were outnumbered 5-1. Do you know what happened? The pirates were destroyed, Verath answered. Every single ship. The humans lost 3 vessels and had 2 more heavily damaged, but they won, and the pirates had weapons that should have been more than adequate to overwhelm the colony's defenders. How did they achieve this? Asked Elder Thelios. We don't know, Merrickx admitted. The humans classified all details of the engagement, but intelligence reports suggest they used tactics that no civilized species would consider. They rammed pirate vessels. They detonated their own damaged ships to take out multiple enemies. They fought with a ferocity that frightened their opponents into making fatal mistakes. You see, Krillix said triumphantly. Barbarians. You want to invite barbarians to save us? I want to survive, Merrickx replied bluntly. And right now, barbarism might be exactly what we need. The swarm doesn't negotiate. It doesn't show mercy. It cannot be reasoned with. Perhaps we need an ally who understands how to fight an enemy like that. The debate continued for another hour, but the mathematics of desperation were undeniable. The Void Swarm was now only 6 systems away from Caltheria Prime, the Coalition's founding world and home to over 8 billion souls. At their current rate of advancement, they would reach it in less than 3 weeks. The Coalition's remaining forces couldn't even delay them, let alone stop them. Finally, a vote was called. The measure passed by the narrowest possible margin. Merrickx was authorized to make contact with Earth and request military assistance. As the chamber emptied, he remained at the central console, staring at the communication protocols for reaching human space. His hands hovered over the controls for several minutes before he finally initiated the sequence. The quantum entanglement communicator took longer than usual to establish a connection. Merrickx found himself wondering if the humans would even respond. They had maintained such careful distance from galactic affairs. Why would they risk their ships and their people for a coalition that had largely dismissed them as primitive newcomers? When the screen finally activated, Merrickx found himself looking at a human woman with dark skin and short-cropped hair threaded with gray. She wore a deep blue uniform with minimal ornamentation, and her brown eyes held an intensity that made Merrickx straighten unconsciously. Behind her, he could see what appeared to be a warship's command deck. All functionality and efficiency, with none of the artistic design elements common to Coalition vessels. This is Captain Sarah Mitchell of the Earth Defense Ship Wanderer, the human said in clear, if accented, galactic standard. We're receiving your transmission, Counselor Merrickx. What can we do for you? Merrickx blinked his inner eyelids in surprise. You know who I am? Mitchell's expression suggested what might have been amusement. Counselor, we may not be members of your coalition, but we're not blind. We've been monitoring your situation with the Void Swarm. We know exactly why you're calling. Then you understand the gravity of our situation, Merrickx said, relief flooding through him. Captain Mitchell, the Galactic Coalition formally requests immediate military assistance from Earth. The Void Swarm is destroying us. Our fleets have fallen. Our worlds are dying. We need help desperately. Mitchell was silent for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Merrickx could hear muffled voices in the background, what sounded like a brief conversation in the human language. The captain held up one hand, listening to someone off-screen, then nodded once. Counselor, Mitchell said carefully, I need you to understand something. The Coalition has made it very clear over the years that you consider human military doctrine to be crude, our tactics uncivilized, our approach to warfare barbaric. Those were actual quotes from various diplomatic communications we've received. Are you certain you want our help? Merrickx felt shame color his response. Everything she said was true. The Coalition had looked down on humanity, had treated them as dangerous children playing with weapons they didn't fully understand. Captain Mitchell, I will be honest with you. You are our last option. Everyone else has failed. If you refuse us, my people and dozens of other species will likely face extinction. Pride is a luxury we can no longer afford. Mitchell nodded slowly. Appreciated the honesty, Counselor. And for the record, I understand the desperation. We've been there ourselves more than once. She turned to someone off-screen. Navigation, what's our current status? A male voice responded. All systems green, Captain. We can be underway in 15 minutes. Counselor Merrickx, Mitchell said, turning back to the screen. The Wanderer is already prepped for deep space operations. We've been on standby since the swarm entered Coalition space. We'll depart for the Caltherian system immediately. Estimated arrival time is 48 hours at maximum sustainable FTL. You're sending one ship? Merrick's couldn't keep the disbelief from his voice. Captain, with all respect, the Void Swarm has destroyed fleets of hundreds. The Wanderer would be facing impossible odds. Mitchell's expression hardened, and Merrick saw something in her eyes that sent a chill through his silver skin. It wasn't fear or uncertainty. It was the look of a predator that had just spotted prey. Counselor, you asked for help. We're giving it. The Wanderer isn't just any ship. She's humanity's answer to threats we can't afford to run from. As for impossible odds, well, Mitchell smiled, and there was steel in it. We're human. Impossible is where we do our best work. Before Merrick could respond, Mitchell continued. We'll need complete tactical data on the swarm. Everything you've learned about their capabilities, their tactics, their weaknesses, if you found any. Transmit everything to these coordinates. A data stream appeared on Merrick's console. Captain, I must warn you again. We've tried everything. Energy weapons, kinetics, biological agents, even temporal distortion fields. The swarm adapts within minutes to anything we throw at it. Good, Mitchell said, and Merrick realized she was serious. Then it hasn't faced us yet. The swarm is about to learn why it's a very bad idea to threaten species under human protection, even species who aren't officially under our protection, she added with a slight smile. The transmission ended before Merrick could ask what she meant by that. He sat alone in the darkened chamber, staring at the blank screen. Around him, the holographic displays continued their grim updates. Another outpost had gone silent. Another billion lives snuffed out in moments. But for the first time in months, Merrick felt something he had almost forgotten existed. Hope. Perhaps it was foolish. Perhaps one human ship, no matter how advanced, couldn't possibly turn the tide against an enemy that had crushed everything the Coalition could field. Perhaps the humans were as barbaric and reckless as many believed. But perhaps, just perhaps, barbaric and reckless was exactly what this war needed. In the vast darkness of space, the EDS Wanderer broke orbit from her patrol station and turned toward the Caltherian system. Inside her hull, 2,000 human crew members prepared for the fight of their lives. They knew the odds. They had seen the casualty reports. They understood that they might be flying toward their own destruction. Not one of them had hesitated when the call came. Captain Mitchell stood on her command deck, watching the stars stretch into lines as the Wanderer jumped to faster-than-light speeds. All stations report ready, Captain, her XO announced. Course laid in. Weapon systems are charging. We'll be ready for whatever we find. Mitchell nodded, her hands clasped behind her back. Good signal, Earth Command. Tell them Operation Lighthouse is active. If we don't make it back, they'll know where the swarm is headed next. Aye, Captain. And the Coalition forces? What should we tell them? Mitchell considered for a moment. Tell them, she said slowly, that the humans have arrived. And we brought a gift for the swarm. We're about to teach it something new. What's that, ma'am? Fear. The Wanderer raced through the darkness toward a war zone where billions had already died. A single human warship against an unstoppable enemy. The odds were astronomical. The chances of success seemed impossible, but humanity had never let impossible stop them before. One ship against the darkness. The Caltherian system was dying when the Wanderer emerged from FTL space. Captain Sarah Mitchell stood on her command deck, watching the tactical displays paint a picture of systematic devastation. The system's outer planets had already been consumed, reduced to debris fields that the Void Swarm was still processing. The inner worlds showed active infestation, their surfaces crawling with biomechanical constructs that pulsed with sickly green bioluminescence. Sensor readings coming in now, Captain. Lieutenant Commander James Park reported from the tactical station. His voice was steady despite what the screens were showing. Swarm presence confirmed across all 7 inner planets. Estimate total enemy units at over 50,000 individual constructs, ranging from fighter-sized drones to capital ship equivalents. And that's just what we can scan. The larger mass is obscuring deeper readings. Life signs? Mitchell asked, though she already knew the answer would be grim. Scattered pockets on Caltheria Prime and the second moon of Caltheria 4. Maybe 2 million survivors total, all in shielded bunkers. The rest, Park trailed off. The rest were gone. 8 billion Caltherians and another 3 billion members of other species who had lived in this system. All consumed by the swarm in less than 2 weeks. Captain, we're being hailed. Communications Officer Chen reported. Multiple coalition vessels requesting identification. They're scattered throughout the system, mostly damaged. I'm counting maybe 30 ships still operational. None at full combat effectiveness. Open a channel to all coalition forces, Mitchell ordered. Let's introduce ourselves properly. The view screen split to show multiple faces from different species. Mitchell recognized Counselor Merrick's among them, his silver skin now showing stress marks that looked like cracks. Next to him was an insectoid being whose chitinous plating bore scorch marks, and a ethereal energy form contained within a specialized environmental suit. This is Captain Sarah Mitchell of the Earth Defense Ship Wanderer, she said clearly. We're here in response to the Coalition's request for military assistance. We're downloading your tactical data now and preparing to engage the swarm. There was a moment of stunned silence before Merrick spoke. Captain Mitchell, we are grateful you came. But I must ask, where is the rest of your fleet? Surely Earth sent more than one vessel? Mitchell saw the hope dying in his eyes even as he asked the question. Counselor, the Wanderer is the only ship we're sending. But she's everything we need. One ship? The insectoid being's voice came through harsh and chittering. Captain, I am Battle Commander Crix of the Hive Warriors. We brought 200 ships to this system. Now we have 7. What can one human vessel possibly accomplish? We're about to find out, Mitchell replied. Battle Commander, I need all Coalition vessels to fall back to the outer system perimeter. Create a defensive sphere around Caltheria Prime at maximum weapons range. Fall back? Crix's antennae quivered with agitation. Captain, we have survivors on the surface. If we retreat further, we abandon them to certain death. You're not retreating, you're repositioning, Mitchell said firmly. And those survivors have a better chance if you follow my instructions. I need you to trust me, Commander. Trust that humans know how to fight when everything seems lost. The ethereal being spoke, its voice like wind chimes. I am Fleet Coordinator Essex of the Luminous Path. Captain Mitchell, our weapons have proven ineffective against the swarm. It adapts to every attack. What makes human weapons different? Mitchell smiled, and there was something fierce in it. Coordinator, it's not about the weapons. It's about how you use them. Now please fall back to the perimeter. We're about to poke the hornet's nest, and I need you out of the blast radius. Reluctantly, the Coalition vessels began moving to the outer system. Mitchell watched them go, noting their damage patterns and depleted shield signatures. These weren't defeated warriors, she realized. They were exhausted defenders who had given everything and watched it fail. They needed to see that victory was still possible. Lieutenant Park, Mitchell said quietly. Status on the resonance array? Fully charged and calibrated, Captain. We've been analyzing the swarm's communication frequencies during our approach. The array should be able to interface with their collective network. Good. Helm, take us into the inner system. Full sublight speed. Let's get their attention. The Wanderer accelerated toward the heart of the swarm presence, and the response was immediate. Thousands of drone constructs detached from the consumed planets, forming attack swarms that moved with eerie coordination. They flowed through space like schools of predatory fish, their biomechanical bodies bristling with organic weapons. Enemy units converging on our position, Park reported. They're forming a standard encirclement pattern. Estimate contact in 90 seconds. Mitchell leaned forward in her command chair. Weapons status on conventional armaments? All railgun batteries loaded and tracking. Missile tubes 1 through 40 ready to fire. Point defense systems active, reported Weapons Officer Kowalski. The young lieutenant's hands moved across her controls with practiced precision. Captain, at current enemy numbers, we'll be overwhelmed in approximately 4 minutes of sustained engagement. Then we'd better not fight conventionally for more than 3 minutes. Mitchell replied. All batteries free fire as soon as they're in range. Let's show them what human kinetics can do. The 3 swarm bioforms imploded, not destroyed by conventional explosions, but simply ceased to exist as matter was compressed beyond any stable configuration and then released in bursts of exotic radiation. The shock waves rippled outward, disrupting swarm constructs for thousands of kilometers in every direction. And then silence. The swarm stopped moving. Individual constructs drifted aimlessly, their connection to the collective severed permanently. They were still dangerous, but they were no longer an unstoppable force. They were just machines without direction, easily picked off by Coalition vessels. Swarm network is down, Park reported, his voice filled with awe. Complete fragmentation. They're not even trying to adapt anymore. We did it, Captain. We actually did it. The coalition command channel erupted with cheers from a dozen different species. Mitchell allowed herself a small smile. They had won. One human ship against an enemy that had destroyed fleets. It shouldn't have been possible. But humans had built a career on making the impossible look easy. All coalition vessels. This is Captain Mitchell. Begin search and rescue operations for survivors on Caltheria Prime. The Wanderer will maintain overwatch position and eliminate any remaining swarm constructs that show signs of coordination. Counselor Merrick's, I suggest you start planning reconstruction efforts. You've got a system to rebuild. Merrick's image appeared on the view screen, and Mitchell was surprised to see what might have been tears on his silver face. Captain Mitchell, I don't know how to thank you. We were ready to die. We had accepted our fate. And then you arrived with your barbaric weapons and your impossible tactics, and you saved us. Mitchell's expression softened. Counselor, I'm going to tell you something that might help you understand humans better. We've faced extinction more than once. We know what it feels like to watch everything you love die while the universe looks away. We swore we'd never let another species feel that way if we could prevent it. The Coalition may think we're barbaric, and maybe you're right. But barbarism has its place. And what place is that? Merrick's asked quietly. Standing between the darkness and everyone else, Mitchell replied. That's what humans do, Counselor. We face the things that terrify civilized species. We use the weapons you won't. We take the risks you can't. Not because we're better than you, but because someone has to do it. She stood from her command chair, straightening her uniform. The Wanderer will remain in system for 72 hours to ensure the swarm doesn't re-establish itself. After that, we return to human space. But I'll be filing a full report with Earth Command. The swarm is still out there and it will attack again. Next time, we'll be ready with a full fleet. And the Coalition? Merrick's asked. Will you join us now? Will you help us prepare for future threats? Mitchell considered carefully. The Coalition needs to understand something. Humans don't do things your way. We're loud. We're aggressive. We take risks that make you uncomfortable. If you want our help, you have to accept that we'll do things our way. Can you live with that? Merrick's looked around at the other Coalition commanders visible on his screen. One by one they nodded. Even Crix, who had questioned the value of a single human ship, gestured agreement. Captain Mitchell, Merrick said formally, on behalf of the Galactic Coalition, I extend an invitation for Earth to join us as full members. Not to change you or civilize you, but to stand alongside you. We've learned today that there are different kinds of strength. We need yours, Mitchell smiled. We'll consider it, Counselor. For now, let's focus on saving survivors and cleaning up this mess. Wanderer out. The view screen went dark and Mitchell turned to her crew. They looked exhausted but triumphant. They had done the impossible and made it look routine. That was the human way. Well done, everyone, Mitchell said simply. Park, prepare a full after-action report for Earth Command. Include everything about the swarm's capabilities and how they adapted to our tactics. Kowalski, I want damage assessments and repair priorities. Chen, start coordinating with Coalition vessels for rescue operations. Aye. Captain, they chorused. Mitchell walked to the forward viewport, looking out at the scarred but surviving Caltheria Prime. Billions had died, but millions would live. One ship had made the difference. One crew willing to take impossible risks. Behind her, she heard Lieutenant Park mutter to Kowalski, Did we really just beat an extinction-level threat with a single warship? Kowalski laughed quietly. Park, we're human. This is what we do. We show up, we fight impossible odds, and we win. Then we act like it was no big deal. Mitchell didn't turn around, but she smiled. That was exactly right. That was humanity in a nutshell. Face the darkness, win against all odds, and then downplay it like it happened every day. Because for humans, maybe it did. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. And that was exactly how it should be. The end.